A couple weeks ago, I sold my kitchen table in preparation to move to my new studio, which I am anticipating is going to be a lot smaller than the one I am in and will either just not have room for the big one that I had or not have room for one at all. And this may seem crazy to some people, but well, I had this kitchen table this past year because it was left by the previous tenant of the studio that I was in, so I enjoyed it. The 9 years of my life prior to this one, I was actually living without a kitchen table this entire time and did not eat at one. And that may seem totally crazy to some people, and you might think, what did I use? Like a little TV stand or a coffee table, but I actually had no table at all. I did have for many years a little leopard reading chair, and I would just often sit in that with my dinner in my lap. That was kind of the go-to. But sometimes it actually was just straight up on the floor. And these past 4 weeks that I have not had my kitchen table, it has been completely on the floor because I have actually sold my couch as well for the same reason of I'm moving and I don't know what is going to fit in my new space. So for the past 4 weeks, I have been sitting on the floor, not on this bone hard tile floor that I have, or linoleum, I don't know what you call this, faux hardwood. Anyway, I am on a rug that's cushy but nothing, no special meditation cushions or anything. I've been pretty much just on the hard, semi-cushioned ground and eating my dinner there out of a wooden bowl that I have. And some people may watching this I may think that as a 39-year-old woman in America in a nice city like San Diego, what the hell is she doing sitting, eating on the floor? That is totally sad or weird, or a word you hear very often thrown around, uncivilized. Well, I'm going to unpack that today. First of all, what do we define as civilized? Everyone uses that word, but do we actually know what it really means? It can mean perhaps a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So I used good old Google, or actually I used DuckDuckGo. That's a great search engine for anyone out there that doesn't want their stuff tracked. Anyway, definition that came up for civilized is when either a place or a group of people reaches a stage of development, both culturally and socially, that is considered more advanced. Okay, it's kind of vague, but most people could gather essentially what that means. And the key takeaway from that is that all development is advancement, and that when the antithesis of that, when we happen to say uncivilized, is that we have the connotation of, because it is outside of the norm of where a certain hierarchy has been reached within a group of people or a society or a country, that this is the top metrics for what civilized is. If someone is uncivilized, then they are living in contrast to that metric of being civilized, essentially. Okay, so we can all get on board with that. Now, coming to eating off of a table. Most people in Western developed nations across the world that are, Western is a term, obviously there's the West geographically, but the term Western gets thrown around the westernized nations of basically following the American dream model or following just the post-World War II of this is what it looks like to be economically developed and financially developed within a society and within a country. And most people would agree that within Western civilized nations, eating at a table is just what you do. That's normal, and that's just, people would never question, like, you would have to be either kind of really poor or really like living on the streets, or just you're in tandem moving, but like, why would you not have a table in your home? That's ludicrous. What are you doing? And there's a lot to that, because yes, obviously there's comfort and ease sitting at a table, and it's nice, and I'm not like a table renegade to the point where if I'm invited to someone's home for dinner, I will refuse to sit at their table. No, obviously I'll sit at their table, but it's been interesting in the past 4 weeks of not sitting at a table, because we have all of these conditions and judgments and ideas of what it means to be civilized and be a proper adult or human being operating in a civilized country. And even the first couple days of it myself, I felt a little bit silly, or I felt a little bit judged, even though I live by myself and no one is at home with me watching me eat. But as soon as I let go of sort of those judgments and stipulations and relaxed into the practice of what I was doing, it's actually been really awesome sitting on the floor. And again, I'm not sitting on like rock hard, physically uncomfortable, an uncomfortable floor. I am sitting on a cushioned rug. So it's quite nice, but there wasn't physical discomfort in it right away. It actually felt nice. There was more mental discomfort and judgment of, oh my gosh, I'm a grown woman sitting on the floor eating my meal. What am I doing? Oh, this is so uncivilized. Or what would people think of me? Or what would my family think of me? Certainly, my friends are a bunch of hippies and they would sit on the floor and join me. But my family or other outsiders, or perhaps, I'm putting myself out there on social media now and starting to get my first haters. Woohoo, that's super fun. What would people think of me as a grown woman? I went to college, I was a former professional athlete, and I live in a very nice, expensive city, and I'm paying $2,300 in rent. Why the hell am I sitting on the floor? But I've come to realize that when you can let those judgments go, it's actually a really enjoyable experience. And there's more to it than just being able to let those judgments go so I can enjoy my experience. It's the practice of facing those judgments, I think, is even more important, because we've constructed this whole paradigm of what it means to be civilized. And there's a book out there, someone in the comments recommended to me. I've not read it, but just hearing the title alone, it struck me so much. And that's kind of the wormhole I'm gonna go down in this video today. Is the title of the book is called Civilized to Death. If you were the person that left that in my comments, please say hello so I can give a shout out to you. But again, yes, the title, Civilized to Death. I've not read it, but I do want to read it. But it really hit a chord with me because it's so much in alignment with personal practices I do, and a lot of what I talk about on this channel of especially in America, and I'm in California, which the state of California compared to the per capitas against all other countries in the world, I believe is third or fourth. It's insane the amount of money that is coming into and going out of this state. We are incredible consumers, and some of the richest people in the world live here, particularly in LA and the Bay Area, but it's all over San Diego. The McMansions are everywhere. The wealth and the crazy shopping. I've mentioned before, I work at a mall where people buy Louis Vuitton purses that cost $20,000, Chanel, Gucci, blah, blah, blah. And even it doesn't always have to be luxury brands. They could go to a store that's sort of mid-range pricing, but still drop $500, and they're in every other day, and shopping is just part of their life. And these are very wealthy and affluent people, but also just normal middle-class people. People love to shop, and this is considered the height of developed civilization. And many these people having these shopping habits, I'm sure all have kitchen tables, and if they were to hear of someone living in San Diego not having a kitchen table, they would probably have an extreme judgment on that. But I'm here to argue that a polarity shift, if you will, or a value shift of if civilization means the pinnacle of what we've worked for as human beings to develop our culture, means going and just buying a bunch of shit that you don't need and being on this treadmill of just mass consumerism, homes filled with 300,000 things, multiple tables, probably some tables that are in that room that families don't even use, or going on the weekend and drinking your face off, watching a game, or just mindless consumption of food and drugs and alcohol and sort of debauchery. I used to live in Las Vegas, and I saw some ridiculous things working on the Strip and seeing these people coming into and going out of nightclubs and just the ridiculous behavior. And if this is where we've reached as evolution, and this is civilization, then I'm happy to be called uncivilized. And Not saying that everyone who is in a Western developed nation or a first world country, as you call them, engages in all these debaucherous behaviors. No, of course not. That's blanketing and that's stereotyping. But I do think that, even if you're not in the gluttony of drugs and alcohol or just overconsumption and wastefulness of food, the shopping overconsumption is kind of ubiquitous in every country, and it's not just the rich and the elite that are part of this overconsumption. It's everyone, and it's madness everywhere. And you hear the term retail therapy. I think it's retail insanity. It's so cooked into people that it will be a reward to go buy all of this useless nonsense that we don't need, and just this hunger for more and more and more, and scrolling online and consuming and feed me Netflix, feed me Hulu, feed me the next greatest special, feed me the next greatest superhero movie that has no plot and is totally stupid, but it's just sensory overload, so I'm going to go see it. There's just this mindless destruction happening that we have no regard for what we're consuming on the planet and what we're destroying in the process of that, and what we're destroying in ourselves of this just grabbing for things on the outside to feed this void that's on the inside, all for the sake of advancement, all for the sake of pushing that profit line, pushing the GDP. Oh, that country has a great GDP, they're doing great. Well, is that any measure for happiness? And our measure for civilization is how much money a country is making and how much the goods and services they're producing and consuming. And to me, that's just absolute madness. And someone may look at me and say I'm absolutely mad because I'm choosing to sit on the floor, but there's something really profound that happens when you do that. It takes you back to the earth. Why does everyone love going on picnics? It feels awesome to throw out a blanket and sit and connect with the earth and be in nature and consume your food, because that's how we used to do it. And you can't go on a picnic all the time. Maybe it's raining, maybe you need to be at home at night or whatever, but sitting on the floor has brought me to a deeper state of grounding and connectedness and just coming into enjoying silence and being with my food. And will I do this forever? I'm not sure. I'm not sure where I'm moving yet. Maybe I will when a table, or maybe when I'm dating someone again, he will be like, what the hell? Can we just have a table? And those compromises can happen in a relationship. Like, I'm not going to refuse to get a table, but the bigger point of this is we have these judgments on ways of living and ways of doing things that are just so nearsighted, and we've gotten so stuck in certain behaviors and seen those as advancements, and we see other behaviors as lack of advancement, but it's gotten us completely disconnected from nature and our true being. We used to, as humans, always just sit on the ground to eat, or where we could, or maybe it was a tree stump or a rock. And this living, when you're on a table, you're connected off of the ground, and there's just all these things we do to connect us off of the ground, like women wearing crazy high heels, or we're in cars all day. And not saying cars and trains and planes and automobiles are all horrible and we should just get rid of them, but they're practices that you can do to come back to the earth, to actually really ground yourself in and say, yes, I'm a human being, part of this nature, I think would shift our consciousness to come back to, oh, maybe I shouldn't be buying things on Amazon or Shopify or Etsy every 5 days or every 5 seconds, or be constantly scrolling, or going into Target just to look around and buy things. I mean, I've heard this Target specifically, I don't know what it is about Target, but I've heard this comment so many times from people like, oh yeah, I went into Target for one thing and I came out with 30. Like, why? Why did you come out with 30? Why did you have to relinquish and submit to that? And you can say, blame the advertisers or blame the marketing and whatever, but you have to look at yourself and say, this is a choice. I don't have to buy all this useless crap. I could just buy what I need, but I am just constantly on this treadmill. And when you are disconnected from nature and caught up in the progress mentality of, oh, I got a new job, so I should treat myself. How often do you hear that phrase, treat yourself? Like, oh, I got a promotion, or I got a bonus, or it's my birthday. So the value I place on myself is to go buy things, and that's what's considered this pinnacle of civilization. But that's where I want to say again, if that's what civilization is, then fine, call me uncivilized. But I think there are certain things we do need to backpedal on. Do I think every single advancement we've had as a human being is bad? No, of course not. But you just do this experiment, go into a Target or a Walmart or sorry, I don't know too many European brands. I know there's a lot of European people in the family here. If you want to spout off to your friends, I know there's some people in the UK that have made friends, some others in Sweden or whatever. Name off those BS stores, or maybe you have less of them overseas. I hope you do. But in America, we have these mega huge stores that all have fluorescent lighting and just everything you could possibly need under the sun. And there's not just one per town, there's one per block. There's more stuff in just the city of San Diego. If you delved out every single Walmart, Target, Best Buy, Bloomingdale's, Nordstrom, Forever 21, every single time, there would be enough to give out to the whole state of California in just one city. It's insane the amount of stuff we are producing. And stores that produce stuff but don't sell it will go out of business. But for the most part, all these stores are still existing because we're buying from it. That's supply and demand. That's how it works. It doesn't do any good to just say, oh, ubiquitously or like ambiguously, that's a better word, blame capitalism or blame whoever the hell is in office that you don't agree with. These stores exist because of the choices we are making, and we, as people progress in they go from their crappy job they have as a teenager, just barely making enough gas money, to maybe a better job out of college, to a better job out of that. And it's just, well, I gotta get a bigger house. Now I get a second car. Now I need to, I'm not happy with how my bathroom looks, so let's get a new bath, like redo the whole coloring. Well, now the bathroom doesn't match the bedroom, so now let's redo everything in the bedroom. And it's like, why do we keep doing this? We're so disconnected. And again, we have these ideas of what progress and civilization are, but and we take them as fact. We love to say, well, that's just how it is, or this is just what you do, or this is right, or this is what a home looks like. I've heard many times, and even from some family members who love me, but they're just concerned because they're so in their way of thinking of, how could you not have photographs on your home? How could you not have a proper sofa? Again, I had a couch this past year, but for 9 years before that, I did not have one. We have these ideas of this is just how you do it. You just have this many things in your home, but there are other people that don't live like this. I mean, even with the eating on the floor thing, I know in places like Japan and Korea, you can't blanket wash and say, well, all Japanese people eat on the floor. No, of course not, but it is definitely more common there and more appreciated there. And maybe it's on a meditation cushion, or it's one of those like little low tables, but it's a different way of living. And there are still in other countries, like we call them lesser developed nations, like in Africa or Cambodia or Laos or wherever, where it's common to eat outside in the dirt or in the grass because it's a totally different way of living. And developed nations love to look at that and say, oh, how uncivilized, they should come up to meet us. And of course, if it's in a situation where there is not enough food or clean water or proper health care, and yes, of course, like those are different situations, but I'm talking more just about cultural ways of doing things. And you go back to, it's amazing, we have uncontacted tribes in the Amazon where people are completely still living off the land, and they have no TV and no technology, and they hunt their own food and procure their own water and build their own homes out of the natural surroundings. And we have the audacity to say that is uncivilized. But if civilization is for the betterment of the people, then I would argue what we are doing now is completely uncivilized. Taking way more than we need, destroying the Amazon, destroying the ocean, destroying the forest, just for the sake of more, doing jobs that are not really adding value to the world. So not everyone, of course, but there are many bullshit jobs out there that don't really matter, and just spending our time wanting to buy more things, way more than we need, and then doing things like binge drinking or binging on stupid TV shows that aren't real, and just numbing out to the experience and living in this virtual matrix where we're totally devoid of human connection. And I think that is the uncivilized thing. This is what is destroying us as a culture. And it's kind of interesting. I will end with this. I watched the movie Gladiator for the first time a couple weeks ago, which I know it's super old. It was like almost 20 years ago at this point, but that's one of those movies that came out when I was, actually it's more than 20 years old. Anyway, it came out when I was in like high school, college, and very busy with training. So I never got to it. Same reason I never watched Lord of the Rings till like a few years ago, but I'm obsessed with it. But anyway, Gladiator is a really awesome movie, but is it completely historically accurate? No, it's Hollywood, but it does touch upon that era of the Roman Empire, kind of on the cusp of when it was at its height before it started its demise. And I was reading a really cool article about the many theories on why the Roman Empire fell. And with anything political like that and on that scale, it is a complicated, long issue that I'm not going to totally go into in this video. I'm not a history expert, but a big part of it is there was so much wealth, and things had gotten so easy for the kind of the inner city of Rome, where they had just conquered and pillaged and just claimed so much land for their own. And they were having these gladiator games because things had gotten so easy for them, and they just were mass consuming at these festivals they had vomitoriums, which is where you would eat so much food and then you would go vomit, because it was just like, that was what was on vogue, is to just consume as much as you could because they could. And they wanted these gladiator games to just be entertained and watch people kill each other. It was very violent back then, because they were just so addicted to this consumption and this stimulus that they needed to see people kill each other to be entertained. And we could say, oh, how uncivilized, and that was so long ago, but I don't think it's unlike what I can't speak to the rest of the world. I'm American, I'm living in America, and each and every state is different too. But in general, I don't think it's very different from how we are living today, where there's just so much wealth in that, and not everyone it's not all the 1%. If you look at the quality of life of where most people really actually are living better by certain standards of, they have a roof over their head, you can just go pick up anything you want at the grocery store at any time. Food shortage is not a reality. Again, this is just America I'm speaking about, but things have gotten so easy, and we're just so addicted to this stimulus and wanting to consume and be entertained. And I do think it is the cusp of a potential downfall, because we are destroying the planet in the process, and other countries are following our lead, like China, when the American McMansion, McDream complex is real, and America was the big brother of the world at a certain point. I'm not saying everyone respects us, they don't, and they probably shouldn't. But as far as the model of economic growth that started post-World War II and the economic boom in America, this standardized infinite model of economic growth, let's just produce as much shit as we possibly can for as cheap as we possibly can, without any regard of what we're doing to the animals, what we're doing to the planet, what we're doing to lesser developed nations, because we use their labor to produce something cheap and then take it and give them barely any profit so that we can sell this plastic useless crap all over the world. It has got to stop. This height of civilization is actually not civilization. And am I fixing all of these problems by choosing to sit and eat my damn dinner on the floor? No, I'm not, but I'm using this as a metaphor to call into consideration a massive overhaul of our habits. Does everyone need to throw away their kitchen table and that will solve everything? No, of course not. I'm being kind of silly with this analogy to talk about a more serious point of little tiny things of these habits you see in the green movement of, just take a little shorter shower, or make sure you recycle, or bring your reusable bag to the grocery store. Like, yes, that's all great, but that's like a grain of sand in an entire desert of issues. And it is, global warming is a very complicated issue, but yes, there could be some external forces of natural fluctuations in the environment that happen every 1,000, we don't know, but there's so much of it that is directly caused by humans. And there's the way we are consuming things on this planet doesn't need to shift a little bit, it needs to shift drastically. And that will need to come with drastically shifting behaviors and drastically questioning, what does it mean to be civilized? Does being civilized mean now that I make 6 figures, now I can go buy that McMansion? Now that I make 7 figures, now I can buy that Rolls Royce and that second car and just buy endless stuff to fill up my house? What if you got more money and you decided to build your tiny home and start living off the land, or start actually subsidizing local organic farmers as a charitable pursuit or whatnot, or being able to travel more but be able to do volunteer work while you travel, or just use your money in an entirely different way. I'm not anti-money, I'm absolutely not pro-communist, because I don't think the government should have control over our lives in that way. That is a very dangerous thing and is proven time and again not to work out, but that's a whole other political video. I'm just saying we need to redefine what success and civilization looks like. Do you need to throw out your table? No. But as you start to progress, as you start to make more money, as you start to become more advanced in whatever way, that doesn't have to equate with doing these things that disconnect us from nature, that disconnect us from our own heart, that disconnect us from our own intuition. What are those things? Substance abuse, technology abuse and addiction, shopping abuse and addiction. These things are pulling us out from our actual nature of what it means to be human and what it means to be connected, and how to live intuitively with the land, how we used to do, where it's funny, we look at these, I'll close with this, when Europeans came over to the Americas and looked at these tribal peoples, just as when they came to Africa and took Africans and put them egregiously into slavery, and with Native Americans, we completely slaughtered so many of them. But the term used over and over again was savage or uncivilized, when these were tribal peoples that were living, for the most part, and again, there were hundreds of different tribes and all had nuanced different ways of living, but for the most part, they had been there thousands of years and were living intuitively with the land and taking what they needed and being stewards of the land versus just seeing the land as property and something that they should mine and use for their own civilized gains to just produce wealth and make just more and more and more and more and more. And I just think it's totally flipped how we've seen things. We call these, and you would, again, as I mentioned earlier, people could look at these uncontacted tribes in the Amazon and say, oh, these are so uncivilized. But to me, if civilization means, by definition, for the betterment of a people, I would say going back to these uncivilized tribes and learning from them and coming back to living more how they live would actually be the most civilized thing to do if we are to better our society as human beings and heal our relationship with how we are relating to each other and this planet. Okay, that is my table-free rant for the day. Will I get a new table? Will I not? I don't know. It's not so important to me. I'm going to continue eating my dinner on the floor and just enjoying that process. Yes, I will close with that. Thank you for watching this rant today, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.